Kia ora koutou katoa. I'm Mervin Singham, the Chief Executive of the Ministry for Ethnic Communities. Over the past couple of years or so, many ethnic people have told us that they want to understand the New Zealand justice system, and that includes law and order. As many of us know, the justice systems of various countries differs from one place to another, and New Zealand is no different. Over the past year or so, we've interviewed senior officials from law and order and justice system agencies. This morning, I have James McCulloch, the Chief Executive of Manaki Tangata Victim Support New Zealand. James, thank you so much for joining me today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what victim support actually does?
Well, kia ora, Mervin. It's great to be here and see you again. Always good to catch up. I've worked in all sorts of different fields here and overseas. I think the common thread has been community, whether I was working back in the City of London with parks and reserves and dealing with community development in those areas, to mental health, to environment, to working with our former refugee and migrant communities as well. And now I'm the CE at Manaki Tangata Victim Support. And of course, we're going to talk a lot more about what that involves. But I've been there for about 18 months and what an organisation we have there.
Thank you, James. Can you tell us what your organisation does for victims, including their rights and responsibilities?
Yeah, I mean, we do an awful lot. If you've been a victim of crime or a traumatic event or suicide, we are there for you. And that can involve walking alongside victims, supporting them through the justice system or not, if they've chosen to engage with the justice system or report the matter to the police, providing them with a support worker in person, perhaps, or virtually down the end of the phone as well, but just making sure that they're not alone on that journey, which, as we know, for anyone can be a really traumatic journey.
In terms of traumatic events, can you define that? Because, a traumatic event could mean many things to many people. Your definition of that, what does that mean?
Yeah, our definition of that goes back to global research on terms of what trauma is and what traumatic events are. So we tend to use exactly that definition, which makes it easier for us as well. And an example of that would be a sudden death, for example, which we do support in certain circumstances, but often a sudden death, whilst it may be very sad, an old person passing in an old people's home, for example, it's not a major traumatic event. It's a sad event for that family. It's certainly not a crime. And where we get referrals for that still, we will just simply provide some initial support and pass on to other agencies that can help as well. So a traumatic event is something that really rocks your world and your immediate family and network as well. And we use standard definitions for that. But again, our contact service, our amazing team on the ground will be able to speak to you about where that fits, and if we can't help, we will certainly help you find someone else that can.
James, can you tell us something about victim support? What's the history of victim support? How big are you?
Well, it's a fascinating history, victim support. We've actually been around for 37 years, and just recently, actually, I met with the founder up in Tairāwhiti in Gisborne, a retired police officer now, but back then, 37 years ago, he was working a custody officer in the police station there, and noticing that there's a lot of support wrapped around offenders or alleged offenders, but very little around victims. And he set out to change that and brought together an amazing group of volunteers to reach out to victims and support them through that journey. And we grew from there. And I guess fast forward to today, we have about 400 staff and volunteers in 65 locations from the far north to Stewart Island. And we're supporting around 50,000 victims every single year. So it's been a big growth for us. And I suppose that's a sad story in other ways as well, in that every single year our referral numbers, our victim numbers grow by about 18% in terms of who we're supporting. But it all tracks back to that same purpose, which is to walk alongside, support, empower victims on that journey, which can be obviously a very challenging journey for victims and for their families as well.
So, James, in many countries, there may not even be a victim support, or if there is, it'd be quite different from what we offer in New Zealand. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What's different in New Zealand?
Yeah, I'm really mindful of that, Mervin. I mean, I suppose, as you know, we've worked together before. When I was at English Language Partners, yes, we spent a lot of time working with our former refugee and migrant communities to really comfort them and persuade them that actually in this country, if you've suffered a crime or traumatic event, it's okay to report it to the police and then to engage with agencies like victim support. I think the important thing is that we're there for everyone. We're completely free of charge and confidential as well. So it's really about people feeling comfortable and safe to engage with us on that journey. Now, all over the world it differs. There are victim support agencies in different countries, but for many of the countries that our migrant communities and ethnic communities come from, there won't be. And so we do a lot of work to try and raise awareness of who we are and that it's safe to engage with us.
James, if I'm a victim of a traumatic incident or crime or something, what do I need to understand about my rights? Are these rights, or are these just things that you offer?
Yeah, they're absolutely rights. They're enshrined in the Victims Act, which means that if you're a victim of crime, a traumatic event, or you're a witness to something like that, or you're a family member, here, under the Victims Act, you will get supported and guided through that system. And we play a huge part in that at a community level in doing that. And so I suppose the really important message that we say to everyone is no one needs to be alone through that trauma, which is indeed a traumatic thing.
Another question that people sometimes raise is how you're located within the justice ecosystem. So I'm thinking about police, the Ministry of Justice, Community Patrol New Zealand. How are you located within that ecosystem?
Yeah, that's a great question, isn't it? So we're actually primarily funded by the Ministry of Justice, but also we have a partnership with New Zealand Police as well. So our national office is based at Police HQ here in Wellington, but we're actually in 65 police stations as well. But the really important thing is, despite those partnerships, we're completely independent from those organisations as well. And that's a really important message for all communities, is that if you engage with us, it's free, safe, and it's confidential as well. Of course, we work closely with those partners, but victims need to know that we're there for them.
So what actually happens? I make a phone call. What actually happens? Who arrives to help me?
Well, I know a little bit about this because I spent some time in our contact centre recently, listening in on some of the calls and helping the team there as well. So what happens is you get through to our contact service. You may do that via email, you may do that via phone as well. These are amazing people who've worked with us for many years and understand the whole range of things that we do. And they will listen, they will take some details, and they will start to think about who best to connect you up with. Now, depending on the type of incident that you've experienced, that may be one of our support workers, and we have volunteer support workers and staff support workers. It may be a different agency as well. There may be a specialist agency, iwi-based agency, faith-based agency, community agency that's best to help you as well. But that contact service team will be the best to put you in touch with that. And we often find that victims are ready for that conversation, or they just want a little bit of information and they want something sent to them to reflect on and digest, and perhaps a couple of weeks later we'll follow up with a phone call as well. The really important thing is that we are completely victim-led in that process, and not just being in terms of being trauma-informed, obviously Titariti-led as well, but victim-centric in everything that we do. So every crime, every experience is different, every victim's experience is different, and our response is slightly different as well.
For the people who can't help, can I just clarify, how that works? If I'm a family member of a victim or a witness of a crime of some kind or traumatic event, do I, get support from victim support? Am I regarded as a victim as well?
Yeah, you are in that situation, Mervin, because under the Victims' Rights Act, that's enshrined there. So that's just a solid right that you have. So you've been a witness to something, a family member of something that's happened to you as well. Again, contact us. Even if you're watching this and thinking, well, that thing happened to me a year ago, I thought I was okay, I thought I've moved on, but I'm still having problems sleeping, I'm still triggered by a certain event or a certain sound or whatever that thing is, please get in touch with us. We're here for you.
Thanks, James. One of the things that many ethnic community people raise with us, this is whether it's victim support or police or any government service that they are trying to access, they face barriers. Sometimes it's language. Sometimes they go to the website, they can't see anything that relates to their culture, their language. And the other barrier is cultural capability. Yeah. They might actually pick up the phone and talk to a public servant, an official of some kind, but then the person on the other side doesn't understand that they come from another country where the cultural values and ways of doing things are very different. So for victims who've got an intention to contact victim support, what assurance can you provide them that they will be supported adequately?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the thing I want all ethnic communities to know is that we are here for everyone across New Zealand if you've experienced a crime or traumatic event. We have a highly trained staff team and volunteer team. We have huge diversity amongst our team as well in terms of background and language. We also use the Connecting Now service through our phone line as well. We can engage with other agencies and support groups as well to make sure that that connection can be made. And we're constantly on a journey of trying to understand how we can better engage with all of our communities as well. Our website is just being updated and we've made more accessible for all communities, but there's a lot more that we want to do. And I think the other thing I would say to all of our ethnic communities is we want to hear from you as well. So we're constantly on this journey of how can we adjust things, how can we make ourselves more accessible, how can we make the experience feel safer and more welcoming. It's all about trying to remove barriers to that support.
I think many ethnic communities would really welcome what you just said, James. One of the questions I have about our population is that, as you know, 20% of New Zealand's population is already comprised of ethnic people, and that's projected to grow to 25% in about 10 years. So that's quite a profound change. Do you have any data on who's actually accessing your victim support services at the moment?
Yeah, so we're very mindful of that at the moment, I suppose, from former roles that I've had as well. And I thought you're probably going to ask me this today, so I did a quick check yesterday on the latest data. And actually, the cross-section of people we're supporting more or less matches those numbers, around about 22% from ethnic communities, and that will grow even more. And I hope, in a way, that it will grow even more through having this conversation today and raising awareness of who we are as well. We're conscious that will keep changing. And again, it's about thinking about all of those different touch points that we can change and adjust to make it feel safer, more welcoming, and just an easier experience for our ethnic communities.
You know, James, I think your background in English language partners are leading that. I think it will be enormously helpful in the outreach you're trying to do for ethnic communities. So thank you so much for that. If I was a victim of a crime or some kind of incident that involves a law enforcement agency, should I talk to the police first or should I just come straight to you?
Well, I mean, there's a choice there, and we support people whether you've reported the matter to the police or not, and that's a really important message that we'll keep reinforcing, because for various reasons some people don't want to report things to the police. And in fact, we know in the last crime survey that there were 220,000 victimisations across Aotearoa, but that only 19% of crime is reported. So a really important message is we're here for you whether you choose to report the matter to the police or not. Again, you know, you may get information about victim support through the police, you may get it through other support groups, but I think the important message is remembering that we're there, our website is there, our free phone number is there 24/7, and that's the other thing. Very unusual for agencies. We're there right through the night, right through the weekends, right through public holidays, whenever people need to speak to us.
Many ethnic people, when they face a problem of some kind, whether it's a crime or an immigration issue or so on, the first thing they'll do is contact an organization that they are associated with. So a Muslim person, for example, would go to an organization that they affiliate with. What do you want those organizations to know about, you know, what to do if somebody contacts them as a victim of crime?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. And I suppose there's just as we get a lot of referrals from police and we get a lot of self-referrals, we get a lot of referrals from other agencies as well. So we're on a big mission at the moment to transform and make our services even more accessible, but also to communicate more, not just with the wider public, but also with different agencies about who we are. So the message is the same to every community group supporting our ethnic communities. We're there for them as well. So same thing. Look on our website, call our number, reach out to us. We want to come along to forums, to hui, to community groups as well. So we're in those 65 locations right across New Zealand, and we're increasingly finding invitations to go and speak at events or to present, and that's really important as well. So I suppose there's an open invitation. I'm always happy to come and speak at those events. I know my team are as well.
I'm sure viewers will be delighted to hear that, James. Another question I have about working for victim support. You've delivered such a compelling message about what victim support does and the way it accommodates diversity of our population. If I wanted to come to volunteer or work for victim support, what do I do?
Well, my message, first of all, is please get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. So we are constantly looking for new volunteers. We can only do what we do 24/7 because we have an amazing group of volunteers as well as our staff team. So have a look on our website, give us a call, reach out to any of our team, and there are some amazing resources there about what it takes to be a volunteer and what that role involves. And it's perfect timing for this question as well, because our volunteer roles have just all changed and we've widened it right out to be all sorts of different roles, whether you want to support directly a victim face-to-face, whether you want to help us behind the scenes, whether you want to help in our offices. We have volunteer roles available, and we're constantly looking to increase the diversity of our volunteer team and our staff team as well in all sorts of different ways. So please get in touch. And what you'll see as well, if you look on our website for that, is some information about the training, which is quite detailed as you'd expect, and how we're changing that and making sure that that's something that we step you through over a series of weeks and months as you go on that journey of being a victim support volunteer. But volunteers right back to those early days, 37 years ago, right through to now, enable us to do what we do. So key message, if you're interested in volunteering, we want to hear from you.
Many businesses are using leveraging technology to improve their business and ways of interacting with their customers. Does that apply to victim support?
Well, it does, actually, and it might surprise some people to know this, but we actually have a head of innovation, which is a brand new role for us, because the world has changed over the last couple of years, post-COVID. I think with AI at the moment, the world is changing at a phenomenal rate, and we're trying to keep up with that. What I'm really interested in is what does that mean for victims, and how does that make things more possible for our support workers to support even more people while still maintaining their own well-being as well. Some of the things we're looking at overseas at the moment would be things like web chat. How can we have a safe space for victims to engage with us through the web 24/7? How could AI help with that as well a little bit? And how could we support thousands more victims without necessarily having hundreds more staff on the ground? Mervin, I'd absolutely love it if we had more staff on the ground to do that, and we'll keep campaigning hard for that. But I guess the reality is we need to find other ways to provide that support. The other thing that many victims tell us is that they're not always ready to speak face to face. And we know this from other parts of our lives, that some people just like to text or like to do something just from behind the safety of the phone rather than meeting face to face. And we need to respond to that as well. So I think you'll be seeing a lot more innovation around what we provide over the next year or two.
James, is there top 2 or 3 things that you think ethnic people listening to this, that you'd like them to understand about the support you provide?
Yeah, I think there's some really important things I'd love ethnic communities to know about us. First of all is that we're here again, and lots of people don't even know that we exist unless you've had an experience that's brought you in touch with us. So we're here for you. We're here for you 24/7. We're free, we're confidential, and we've done this for 37 years. So we're pretty experienced in this as well. And we've got an amazing team who are very happy and waiting and willing to hear from you.
Thank you so much, James. I know ethnic communities will be delighted to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick.